Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Patriots, gay-triots, they-triots, black-triots, brown-triots, and if you want to marginalize those people, you can.
Fuck off!
This is a place for everybody. We are proudly America's Mothers, a top DEI podcast.
In fact, we have the biggest podcast in the world.
In the history, cap lock, exclamation point.
Yes.
The hottest broads in all of showbiz.
And everybody thinks we're the prettiest people on the planet.
Yeah, everybody's talking about it. The likes of which the country has never seen.
Never seen before, never seen anything like it.
All right. My queen bee pumps, what have you had it with?
Okay, what I've had it with, and I know it's a continuation. I've had it with passwords. I've had it with everything having to have a password. I don't know my passwords. I can't remember them. I have had 2 passwords in my life, and every time I sign in, they say, oh no, this isn't your password. And then you have to go to your pass key, and it's some made up number by my phone. Why do we isn't there an option for people that can't remember their passwords that says, I can't remember my password? Instead of sending me a new link, just say, honey, we'll just let it slide. That's what I need. I fight with my password situation all the time. I'm sick of it. I've had it.
Yeah, you're in the trenches with these things.
I am.
And it's been going on for years. I mean, I can attest to you guys for years. Years ago, Pumps didn't have a Facebook. And I'm talking like right when Facebook came out. And I was like, you need a Facebook. And she was like, just make one for me. So I made her a Facebook and I posted as her. And really funny stuff. And everybody thought she was serious, but I can't remember what I would say. It was like, I'm the happiest gal in the world, blah, blah, blah. And I accepted friend requests. This was like when we were bored, when you have toddlers, when you're sitting at home. But I remember I knew your password because I had to set up like an email account in your Facebook. Basically, what you're telling our listener, since we're the top podcast in America, that it's like, hack me, duplicate me. I don't want a password.
Okay, here's the deal. I mean, I hate all the scams and the passwords, but at this point, I mean, I can't cancel these subscriptions because I can't remember my password. I've just had it. I've just had it. And I'll say this. I know exactly what you were doing, why you knew my passwords. Because you were the person that set up online for my bills to be paid online.
I did.
That's why.
I've always been your young friend. But back before millennials were of age, I was your millennial.
Right.
Even though I'm not a millennial.
Right. You were always better at computers than me.
And I'm not that great. Honestly, I'm not super techie.
Well, it's a low bar.
Yeah. Okay. Let me tell you guys what I've had it with. And this is pertaining to Uber. I've had it with Uber giving false information about the arrival time of the car. So when I'm traveling to like New York or LA, I'll take Ubers. And because I don't want to rent a car in either space. And in New York, I take the subway during the day, but at night it's Ubers. I was just in New York a couple of weeks ago. And so I'm looking at the cars that you can get. And it's like Uber Comfort is 10 minutes away. Uber Black, it was like $4 more. It's 1 minute away. So I was like, I'm going to splurge. I'm doing the Uber Black. I committed to it being 1 minute away.
Right.
That was why I decided to splurge. I click the Uber Black and it says finding your car. And it pops up. Your car is 12 minutes away.
False advertising.
And it happens every single time. Even if I select Uber Comfort, Uber Black, and I don't do the Uber Share because I don't like sharing. I'm not a sharer at my age. I don't want to share with anybody. But and for those of you that do it, I don't mean if I was young and broke, I totally would share. But I think this is complete. It's just complete conning me. Like you can't rope me in by saying that this car is 1 minute away because I'm thinking it's right around the block. It's parked within one New York block. And then we find it and we're 12 minutes away. Like that's just, you can't do that to somebody. And I'm a time manager.
Yeah.
And when I know that I have 12 minutes, I would have been up in the hotel room, returning an email, returning a phone call, doing something of importance. I don't want to spend those 12 minutes being lied to because from the beginning of that, the first minute to the 12th minute, what it does to me and my serenity is not good.
Right.
I get madder and madder and madder at Uber for lying. And if we lived in a country where we had a government that would be interested in regulating some of these tech companies that have made billions of dollars, billions of dollars, because, hey, you can't do that shit.
Right.
Elon Musk, you can't write that crazy shit on your website and then game the algorithm so that everybody can see it. You can't amplify Holocaust denialism on your website. Nobody will touch them because all they do is get a trophy for Kanks and take it over to him to the circle jerk meeting. And it's just really disappointing.
It is very disappointing. And it's false advertising and it's a con job. But, the biggest con on planet Earth is the president. So nobody's going to take any action. I'll tell you what I've had it with Uber about. So I put in my thing, because Kylie set up my Uber, that I can go in and tell them what my preferences are. And I say quiet and cool. The other day I got in an Uber and this guy, it was like we were best friends. Like he hadn't seen me since high school and we were like BFFs. And I just wanted to say, shut the fuck up. And I could see on the thing, it said cool and quiet. Like he knew it, but he just couldn't help it. So I've had it with that too.
Yeah, that's just not okay. And here's the thing that I don't like about all this stuff from a lot of this tech industry. Like, we're good customers. Like I'm a good customer of Uber.
Yeah.
I tip because we have to live in a country where we have to subsidize Uber paying these people a real salary. So working class people, that really, really like taking an Uber as a splurge have to tip because, nobody's ever going to make these billionaire, trillionaire companies pay their people a living wage. I mean, that's just completely out of the realm in MAGA, Christian first, pro-life world. And, it makes me sick that we're such good customers and they're such shitty parasites off of us. It really pisses me off. All right. Welcome to I've Had It. I am Jennifer.
I'm Angie. The HBIC and the B stands for beaver and bitch. Both.
Bitchy beaver. All right. This was a really interesting story that I'm sure is going to rile people up, but I found it fascinating. Forced participation in religious activities to be classified as child abuse in Japan. The rules also instruct authorities to remove children from their homes immediately if necessary. As the guidelines state, children influenced by religious teachings may not even realize they are being abused. This is the first time Japan has introduced rules specifically aimed at protecting children of religious followers. The new guidelines make things clearer, frightening children by saying they will, quote, go to hell if they do not join rituals, or preventing them from deciding on their education or career will be considered psychological abuse. Families that cannot provide food or housing because of large donations to religious groups, or parents who isolate their children from friends because they are not of the same faith will be considered guilty of neglect. In Japan, parents and religious groups who force children to take part in religious activities or deny them the right to choose their own future will now be treated as perpetrators of child abuse. The new rules, prepared by the Ministry of Health, come after years of complaints from children of controversial organizations. For years, children said authorities failed to protect them when they reported their suffering to police or child consultation centers. They were often told that, quote, freedom of religion is guaranteed under the Constitution. Pumps.
Okay, I'm reading the things that they have now said are make someone a perpetrator of child abuse. And I'm like, oh, well, that's my childhood. That's exactly what happened. You're going to hell if you don't do this. And it fucked me up. So this is a good thing. I don't think in Christian nationalist, radical, evangelical culture, United States, we're anywhere close to this, but I agree with everything they said. And you know what popped into my head when they're talking about keeping your kids from other kids that have different religious beliefs? That's homeschool.
Yeah.
That's why people homeschool is they don't want their little darling, introduced to anybody that may not be a super MAGA Christian person. So honestly, I believe this is probably the right way to go. And I think 100 years from now, we will have moved closer to this.
I hope so. I mean, listener, as you know, we live in the Bible Belt, pump raised, hellfire damnation. You know, you're born a bad person. Only Jesus can save you. I was raised completely secular. My parents atheists. And I can tell you that a lot of my peers sometimes were not allowed to come over to my house because my family, we didn't go to church. When Pumps and I first became friends, her mother was very concerned. We were both grown adults, very concerned about you hanging out with me, even though you were a lawyer, 30 plus years old. I was marked with the, scarlet A, not for adulterer, but atheist. And that was problematic, even though I'm a relatively good person and I've always been a positive influence in your life. And then I remember my first boyfriend, Sean, his parents were big Bible thumpers and he was wildly indoctrinated. And his mother caught him masturbating once. He was 16 years old. And he was grounded. He was in all of this trouble. And I think that's child abuse. I think when you tell a teenage kid pumping full of hormones that beating off is somehow demonic and the devil had gotten a hold of him, and that is just straight up child abuse. That's horrible. But on this front, I had a great exchange with a friend of mine from high school named Holly. And Holly is the friend from high school that I've known since elementary school. And she is a Democrat. And where I went to high school, everybody is right-wing, conservative, megachurch, Christian, full tilt, Fox News, the whole nine. So the few of us that are Democrats kind of became reacquainted after Facebook. Holly's always stayed in touch with everybody. She's a wonderful girl. But the very first boy that I ever kissed, like French kissed, was a kid named Billy. And you always remember your first
Always.
kiss. Billy was so cute, you guys. I remember we were hiding under this honeysuckle bush and we were like truth or dare to kiss for like 10 seconds. And Billy was like, let's go 11. And we did. And Holly was texting me the other day. And I'm so proud to tell you and the listener that Billy, my first French kiss, is a Democrat.
Wow, that's huge.
For the listeners abroad and that don't live in Bible Belt states, it's like this. It's like, oh my God, at one point I had a great picker. Billy, my first kiss was a Democrat. And the odds of Billy being a Democrat, you guys,
92-0.
So Billy, you know who you are. And I'm just going to tell you, I never regret that kiss. If I wasn't married to Josh, I'd kiss you for 12 seconds now, Billy. You were a good kisser too, Billy.
Don't you look back on like the first of everything, the first kiss, the first sex, and think, I was so bad at that.
I think back on it so nostalgic.
Oh, I'm super nostalgic, but sometimes I think, I bet that was a rough kiss.
Well, when you first had sex with somebody, you thought you were going to crawl out of the bed and Satan was going to gobble you up, right?
That's 100% true.
Because child abuse.
Referring back to the article.
Religious abuse. You guys, this is going to be like the autopsy of a lot of this MAGA shit and how religion primed them for this, the cruelty, the black and white worldview, don't critically think, believe everything the leader says with blind faith, have blind obedience. Evangelical Christians are primed for this. And I believe, and I've long believed this growing up around all these Bible thumpers, that my peers were abused as children. And a lot of the people that are in the MAGA movement are broken. These are emotionally stunted people who have been discouraged to use their brains to critically think. And it does not set up the world for a healthy space for us to live in.
I completely agree.
Oh my God, Kylie, I didn't introduce you. I went straight to the news story. You guys, we did it out of order.
Skipped
Kylie,
over the lesbian.
I'm so sorry.
No.
Please don't call me a bad ally.
Okay, I've got 2 reviews for you.
Okay.
This first one is Better Than Therapy, 5 stars. And she writes, wow, these 2 smart, sassy, creative, funny, and yes, kind, beautiful women are the biggest breath of fresh air we need right now. I cannot wait to listen to this podcast every day and share it with all I know. The sad part is that the individuals suffering from cognitive dissonance won't listen. And if they did, they just won't get it. But I hope they keep doing what they are doing for a long time. Thank you.
That's
love
so
that.
nice. One thing that I really am so thrilled with that Pumps and I have done, and I never thought we were competent enough to do it, is we built a community where
Yes.
people feel a sense of belonging. And it's such a daunting thing being an American right now.
Very.
Pumps and I talk about it when we're not filming, you guys, like how foreboding it is and how worried we are. And I'm just happy that we have this place where our friendship is expanding for other people like-minded that feel the same worry, that feel the same humor, that have the same sense of wanting a sense of community to get us through this. I just couldn't be more thrilled at that unintended consequence
Right.
of the pod.
Absolutely. I feel the exact same way.
Okay, the last one I've got for you is 5 stars as well. Thank you for fighting the good fight. And they write, I miss the days of petty grievances before the U.S. became a plot line of a terrible movie. As a fellow liberal Oklahoman, thank you for being our voice. I fangirl hard every time I see you on a national platform.
That is so sweet. And it is. When you are a blue dot in a red state, it's not easy.
Yeah, I have to shout out to all the blue dots in red states because that is it's a difficult place to be in. And, your peers look around at you like, oh, you're
a
crazy.
radical
You're
left
crazy
Democrat scum.
And you see firsthand how damaging MAGA policies are.
Mm-hmm.
You see it firsthand and you see how deranged and more radicalized these MAGA people have become. And with each capitulation of Trump moving the goalposts, the leaders moving the goalposts, the religious leaders moving the goalposts, how collectively that whole movement went from bad to worse on a national level all the way down to a personal level. The moral rot of supporting this man is just so sad.
Yeah, and so rampant. I mean, 77 million people thought it was a great idea to elect a criminal.
Yeah, there's a lot of buyer's remorse on that. He's underwater with every group, every single group. This guy is not popular, Kanks. Not popular at all. All right, we have a guest that I'm so excited to have. I had wanted him on, and then, of course, the internet brought us together, sliding into each other's DMs. This is David Miles Hogg. David Hogg is the co-founder of Leaders We Deserve and March for Our Lives. David Miles Hogg, welcome to America's Top DEI podcast. I've had it.
Happy to be here.
David, it's been really difficult being an American lately. It's a really anxiety-ridden moment where you wake up and we can go on a podcast and giggle and have exchange pleasantries. And then you look at your phone and you think, what the fuck is going on? So in that vein, how are you and what have you had it with?
Well, I've had it with a lot. I'll say this much. I've, of course, had it with gun violence, first and foremost, given how I got involved in politics after Parkland and the recent news and the daily gun violence that we see every day in this country.
Will you spell out for our listeners who maybe have seen your face, but tell us your history about Parkland and what brought you to be a national figure now on this.
Yeah, so I got involved in politics after the shooting at my high school in Parkland, Florida, where 17 of my classmates and teachers were murdered. A group of classmates and myself came together after the shooting and said that we were going to try to actually change things. And of course, lots of older people, especially political purported experts and pollsters and pundits told us, this is Florida. It's horrible what happened to you young people, but nothing is going to change here because this is a Republican trifecta state. There is zero chance that you will get anything done. And then like all good teenagers do, we did what our parents told us we couldn't, and we proved them wrong. And we ended up raising the age to 21 to buy a gun in our state in Florida and passing a red flag law that has been used over 20,000 times since the shooting in Parkland to disarm people that risk themselves and others. That most research afterwards showed that there was about a pretty strong correlation of about a 11% reduction in gun homicides following the passage of that law, which isn't anywhere near enough, but it's a hell of a lot better than the track that we were on. And in the time since, when I was in college, I hired Maxwell Frost to lead our organizing efforts for our lives. Maxwell then asked me to help him in his run for Congress when he was 24. I helped him run. He had an incredibly hard time running, but despite having to Uber drive from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. every night while running for Congress. And, coming from a very working class family, he ended up being elected to be the first Gen Z member of Congress. And I've since gone on with his campaign manager, Kevin Latta, to co-found Leaders We Deserve. We're a PAC and super PAC that helps elect young progressive Democrats who don't take corporate money and support stronger gun laws and support all kinds of progressive issues, of course, too. So that if our government doesn't change our gun laws, we'll find those young people that walked out of their schools, that protested with us in one of the largest student protests in American history, and change gun laws ourselves by changing who's in government.
I love Maxwell Frost. He's been on the podcast before, and I think he's incredibly impressive. And, I kind of feel like I'm a Gen Xer, but I'm ready for your generation to really accelerate into the national scene. I think it's just so time for a changing of the guard. And no disrespect to boomers. My parents are boomers. Boomers, the good ones, fought really good fights for civil rights and advancements. But there's just a time where it's time to pass the torch on. And unfortunately, your generation has been the gun generation. Pumps and I grew up, we had a tornado drill because we live in Oklahoma, and we had a fire drill. And I have two sons, David, and my youngest one is in college now. But when I went to pick him up from junior high about 5 years ago, he's such a happy boy. And I went and picked him up. I said, "Hey, Roman, how was your day today?" He climbed in. He said, "Oh, hey, Mom, we had an active shooter drill." And my heart fell into my stomach. And thinking about what was said and what they were thinking, because I remember doing the tornado drill, you think for a second, most of the time you're dicking off with your classmates, cutting jokes. Right. But it impacted him. And so will you please, because I don't think we can talk about this enough. When you're at high school, where you're supposed to be safe, and a shooter comes into your school and murders people, what is the impact on that long-term, in the moment and long-term? How does that impact you, David, as an individual and your classmates?
Horribly. And it affects our teachers a ton, obviously, as well, the first responders as well who showed up. And it's to the point that, unfortunately, several of our classmates have taken their own lives in the time since the shooting. And it creates long-lasting impacts. It really divides a community, especially when it's a issue that, people say is highly political all the time, and divides them a lot. And it creates a lot of long-lasting pain and scars that I think many people have to just learn how to live with, unfortunately, and some never figure out how to do that, unfortunately. And this, mind you, my school in Parkland is one of the most well-resourced in the state of Florida. It's one of the best schools in the state. It has the median household income in Parkland is well over $120,000 a year. These are the effects that many of our students and our classmates are facing, despite the enormous privilege that our high school had. And what I think about are the young people that don't have the privilege on getting on the news, that go through instances of gun violence outside of school on a daily basis. The other day when Charlie Kirk was killed, not only was there a school shooting that happened as well that same day, there were also a dozen plus other shootings that happen every day in this country that barely make it on the news, that still have trauma, create trauma for people that doesn't get anywhere near the same attention. So what I think about a lot is how do we make sure that we're making every community safer, and not going to them and saying, this is what we're going to do for you, in my case being somebody from Parkland, but asking what can we do for each other and how can we support each other? Because if Parkland's safe but no other community is, we're not doing our work, and our work isn't done yet.
Pumps and I had a guy that worked for us. His name was Javier Sanchez Morales Jr. And he started working for me for my interior design firm when he was 18 years old. He's a Black kid. His dad was half Cuban, half Black. That's why the Javier Sanchez Morales Jr. And we called him Javi. And last October 12th, I said goodbye to him. October 11th was a Friday. I said, "Bye, Javi." And he called me J-Dub. He said, "Bye, J-Dub. I'll see you Monday." And I worked 40 hours with him. I spent more time with him than I did my children. And in many ways, he was like a surrogate son to me. And the next day, he went out, no criminal record, no parking ticket, nothing. He went to a convenience store 1.5 miles, 2 miles from this studio, and some people tried to rob him, and they shot him. And the feeling that I had after that, and that I still have, like at first, David, when I come back to the office, I would start realizing he's never coming back. And then like a month would go by, and it's like, I could still kind of like feel him around. I could see like something he had put somewhere in the care he put to organize something neatly or arrange, like in this podcasting studio, little X's where tripods go. And then the time goes on and it goes on, and you realize they're not coming back. And the grief, and then then your brain goes to like, my brain would go to like, when he fell down, was he bleeding? Did it take a long time for him to die? And you have all of these things that come out of this. And the thing that makes me the most mad about all of this is that if you live in America long enough, somebody you love will get shot. And that hadn't happened to me until I was 50. And when I was 50, somebody I loved very much, like my very own son, got shot. And I was hopeful, because the political campaign was going on then, that Kamala would win and we could have a lot of conversations like this. How can we get, common sense gun laws? How can we end the suffering and the pain that this is causing people? But now we have the pro-life regime in power. And it seems like all they want to do is make guns more accessible to people. And in our state, guns have more rights than women.
Right. Yeah. I mean, first of all, I'm sorry for your loss. It's horrible that happened. And unfortunately, your story is not unique in this country, as you mentioned. What is unique about our country is that we're one of the only countries in the world where stories like that are nearly as prevalent as they are, especially in a country as developed and wealthy as we are. Right. And what I think we need to do after these shootings is figure out how to acknowledge that we have our differences and figure out what, even if it's a tiny amount of agreement that we have, how to come together like we did after Uvalde and Buffalo and actually do something to save lives. Because we all do agree at the end of the day that something has to change here, that something has to be done. And I think in the case of Charlie Kirk, unfortunately, we saw an instance here where this argument of the only thing to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun only is true if the bad guy with the gun is in range. And with a sniper, they rarely are. And there's no amount of bulletproofing our society that we can do that is going to be able to prevent what happened until we address how somebody gets a gun like that in the first place and the hatred that drives them to do that.
I have a question, because you mentioned that in your community after Parkland, there were two sides. And then for me, it is hard for me to pretend there are two sides to children dying in school shootings. Gun violence as a whole, absolutely. But particularly, why would someone think that arming a teacher would help gun violence? Oh, well, everybody gets a gun. I attribute it to the NRA, but tell me, what are the arguments for these people that it is more important for them to protect guns than protect little kids that are innocent going to school?
I think the reason why they want to arm teachers is, one, because for the gun industry, it's useful to sell more guns, right? Guns are not like iPhones. They don't break down over the course of 2 years because a lot of the time gun owners aren't regularly using them. So when you're a gun company and you constantly need to figure out how to expand your market, and you've already militarized the police, you've already armed the military, then you have to figure out other parts of our society to arm. And we're in a vicious feedback loop where people feel afraid because there are so many large, people that are severely undertrained, severely underregulated, that have firearms in our society, that are going and committing acts of gun violence, that then results in us selling more guns because people feel a loss of agency and a loss of control because our government is failing to do its job, which is to protect its people. And I think that's part of the reason why this idea of arming teachers has become so popular, because people want to feel a sense of agency that even if the government is going to do something, that maybe their teacher can. And it's horrible and it should not happen, right? I don't know if anybody who says that teachers should be armed clearly did not have some of the teachers that I had growing up.
Oh, shit.
Right?
That's what I'm thinking about. I had this Miss Schiffelbein. She was a retired Catholic nun. She was about 4'11", crazier and meaner than a rattlesnake. She'd slap our hands with rulers in a public school. She'd like slap our hands. I'm thinking, Mrs. Schiffelbein armed is nuts.
Yeah, it's insane. And not to mention the practicality of it, right? If you have a bunch of teachers that are armed in this situation, how are you supposed to tell who the shooter is? What if it was one of the teachers? What if it was a student who got the gun from the teacher because they went to the bathroom and left it on the ground? There's so many major risks that this brings. But the point that I really want to bring us back to is that while addressing school shootings, of course, is important, the vast majority of gun deaths in this country, one, are suicides that we do and we need to address, and we have to talk about a hell of a lot more, because those are preventable deaths, because we know most people who attempt suicide the first time and survive their first attempt do not reattempt. With a firearm, you do not get that chance almost ever, right? Then we also have daily acts of gun violence that happen outside of school that predominantly happen in poorer communities that have far less resources that we absolutely do need to talk about and make sure that we're not leaving any part of this out in that conversation. But I think that's going back to what you said. The reason why they feel the need to arm teachers is, one, because they want to sell more guns, and it helps them to fund these politicians more. And it gives people some sense of a false sense of security that at least something is being done so that their kid is going to be safe, even though we know that this is actually going to put them in danger more, almost certainly.
Well, and just what about the psychological effects that our society is having such a regressive conversation that our kids go to schools and people are armed around them, yet we're the richest, freest country in the world. Like, it's such a regressive, insane thing to say. And the way they move the goalposts, our Trump, we call him Kanks, short for Kankles. I heard Kanks the other day talking about arming teachers and stuff. And I'm just like, why are we even entertaining this idea? Why is this even being entertained? We want our children, two football guys could plow through the teacher, take the gun. It's so ridiculous that we even have to have such a regressive, stupid conversation. It makes me so bloody mad that is even being entertained in conversations with people that are in charge of us, people that know better.
Because it's also just getting to the point where it's like they always love to talk about a slippery slope with guns. I think arming teachers is a real slippery slope, because after Columbine, it was we need cops on every campus. And then we had cops at Uvalde. They did fucking nothing. We had cops at Parkland. The cop assigned to my school to protect us did nothing, because this was a shooter with an AR-15. And the reality is, these cops, they have to prove that they are good guys with guns in these situations. And far too often, when the moment actually counts, when lives are on the line, they prove only to be cowards with guns. And first responders, of course, have a role to play here in addressing gun violence as a last resort. But people like my father who was an FBI agent, should not be the first line of defense when our politicians don't have the courage to do their damn job and actually regulate guns, so that people like the shooter at my high school, who repeatedly threatened to shoot up my high school over several times and was reported to the FBI, was reported to law enforcement, and had the police called to his house. I think it was nearly a dozen times before the shooting, so that people like that are not able to still be legally armed with an AR-15, because we understand making sure somebody like that is not armed is no danger to anybody's freedom. And in fact, it protects all of our freedom to go to school without the fear of being shot. It protects our freedom to know that we can go out to a movie and not look at where the nearest exit is. It protects our freedom to know that when you send your kids to school, that the only drills that they should have to do in the future are tornado drills and preparing for natural disaster, not a man-made and politician and cowardice enabled disaster like gun violence. And until we make these politicians feel like they're going to lose their job until they do something about this, both on the left and making sure that we do as much as we can as Democrats to address this, and on the right, we're going to continue having this conversation.
Yeah, sadly.
Yeah, go ahead, Pops.
I was just going to ask you one thing, and this makes me crazy. Like, I want to tear my hair out and like jump out a window. It makes me so mad. Is when politicians after shootings say, well, thoughts and prayers, but no gun policy. And then I sit there and I think, thoughts and prayers is not gun control. It is not a policy to prevent death. It makes me crazy. It makes me insane. So how does somebody with your background, with all of this experience, how do you talk to someone normally about how their thoughts and prayers are not going to protect children. Because, we online, it's like, you're blasphemous, you're Mike Johnson gets up there and cries around like he's been under attack. And I'm like, if thoughts and prayers could fix gun violence, this would have never happened. But so how do you talk to somebody rationally? Because I can't be rational about it.
I would tell them to actually read the Bible again and remember that Jesus didn't just pray, he also flipped tables. And they also, in the Bible, it says that, what is it? I'm trying to remember the exact quote.
You're asking the wrong person.
It's that prayers without works is dead. And so anybody who just acts like this is, that thoughts and prayers are the answer to protecting our kids from gun violence, look, if you have faith, that's fine. Pray all you want, but do the work too. The thing that there's a lot of stuff that really bothers me about this issue, obviously. Mm-hmm. One of the things I've been thinking a lot about lately is like this idea that all of these guns just enable us to have freedom. I don't feel very free right now.
Right.
I don't think when somebody like Charlie Kirk is able to be assassinated like that makes us a more free country. Even if I vehemently disagree with everything that he's ever said, it doesn't make us more free. And I think there's a real conversation that we need to have around the fact that democracy and political violence cannot coexist. And look at how many of our leaders throughout American history have been taken by this. And we still continue to have this conversation. And when are we going to say enough is enough? And it's not to say that we'll ever get to a place in this country where we have more guns than people and nobody is dying from gun violence, right? But we can make significant progress on this. In states like Massachusetts, they have a gun death rate 70% lower than the rest of the country. You can still get a gun in Massachusetts, but it's a similar process to getting a car.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. And I just can't thank you enough for your work, because it's after that impacted us. I mean, I think about this as you probably do, what happened at your high school. It breaks a part of you, a part of me, a part of him being murdered broke something inside of me. But let's move on. And I want to play, thank you for all of your information on that. But I want to play our game with you called Had It or Hit It. Oh my God. Welcome to Had It or Hit It. I would hit it. Had it. I hit it every day, sometimes twice a day. So David Hogg, Had It or Hit It, Twitter.
I would not be on there if I didn't have to be. I hate social media with a passion. Yeah. I really hate it. Like, I wish I could just be off of it forever.
Okay. Had It or Hit It, AIPAC.
Had it. They need to go. They should not have any role in dictating our government's foreign policy. They're, I would argue, one of the largest foreign influence operations in American history. And they have been incredibly successful, and it is fucking awful. And they should not exist.
I completely agree. I have been so hurt by the Democratic leadership after Trump's second term. Yep. And when you find out that this organization funded his reelection and then also funds Schumer and Jeffries,
yep,
that is just insanity. It is complete insanity. And so they are just, by extension, MAGA light. And once you start opening your eyes up to it, you see it again and again. And then you see, we had Zoran Mamdani on our podcast.
Hell yeah.
He's amazing and he's great.
We were a big supporter of his. We were his largest financial supporter.
I love that guy. And, you know, the thing about being on the left is we don't require blind loyalty. You can agree with Zoran on, you know, a few things. You can say maybe he's too left for me, maybe he's not, whatever. But the fact that these New York politicians won't endorse him, it makes me so fucking mad, David.
Don't even get me started. Because like what's crazy to me is the fucking dancing around and like the like circus of bullshit that they get into constantly. And it's like it's like all the answers that Hakeem Jeffries is giving. It's like give us a fucking we know why, right? Because you don't want to piss off your donors and you don't want to piss off AIPAC. That's it. It's not fucking complicated. And instead, we see a situation where the vast majority of people in his congressional district voted for Zoran.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you're not listening to them, who are you listening to? Because it's not the people you represent.
It's insane. And then I saw after
the disproportionate amount of let me just tell you, like inside of DC, because I'm in a lot of these conversations with different groups and everything about like, oh, like how do we support people that are going to win in these races and everything? The three questions I hear most often are, what is AIPAC doing? What is crypto doing? And what is their last quarter's fundraising / how much money do they have on hand? That's it. It's not like, is this person a good person? It's not, oh, is this person actually going to help like be a good person in our party? Those are the three questions that I hear 95% of the time and basically nothing else. And it is incredibly depressing because an organization like AIPAC should not have a role in our politics. They shouldn't be legal. It is absolutely insane, the amount and the chokehold that they have on our party. And it is beyond time more people start fucking saying it, because there's a really good quote that I read the other day from James Baldwin, actually, that really I thought brought this forward, because it made me think about AIPAC and the NRA and why they have persisted for so long. And in this quote, in one of his works called The Fire Next Time, it's one of his most prolific works, he's talking about the Holocaust and how it happened. And he says one of the mistakes that people make when they're thinking about the Holocaust is that people think that it just required that people be evil or wicked, rather, for it to happen. And for evil to happen, it doesn't require that people be wicked, only that they be spineless. And there are a lot of spineless people in our party. And there was a lot of spineless people in Washington. I call them windsocks, where they just go whichever way the wind is blowing. And the question is, are you going to be a windsock, or are you going to make the wind? Are you going to try to make the wind blow? And we need to actually make sure that when people do the right thing, it is not only the right thing, but also politically the right strategy, because we know it is.
Well, and this is what gets me, David. The Democratic approval rating is abysmally low. And this is the political climate where it would be so easy to be an opposition party. Like, I mean, the split screen of Kanks with the bruises and his rambling, demented stuff with, you know, it looks like they put on an AI video the other day. I mean, I'm no AI expert, but it's what it looked like to me. So we've got this demented guy, wildly unpopular policies, has to have billionaires around him kissing his ass. It would be such a layup argument right now to take to working class Americans in suburban and rural areas and say, MAGA lied to you. They're Israel first, not America first, and start doing it over and over and over and over again. Super simple.
Yeah.
And because they're beholden to the same people, guess who's making this conversation right now? Grifter, anti-Semite, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yep. And I'm shocked that she has that much ambition in her, but she hangs out with Steve Bannon, who is a political strategist, and they're all seeing beyond Kanks. They're seeing like, okay, this guy's quacking like a duck. He's 80 years old. You know, we need to be thinking post-MAGA strategy. And then I see, like you said, Hakeem and the word salad.
Oh, the word.
Cory Booker and 25 hours of word salad. Huh?
And the strongly worded letters.
Oh my God.
I can't take the strongly worded letters.
Like, is that our fucking strategy for November of 26? It's just bury Republicans under a avalanche of strongly worded letters? Because that's what it fucking feels like.
Yeah. What do you think would happen? I mean, and this is just an opinion, because I have my opinion about this. If the leadership came out and said, we're done with corporate donors, we're in the fight of our lives here. The Democrats aren't taking it anymore. Hakeem Jeffries, not Chuck Schumer, Cory Booker, and others. And if you continue to take them, we're going to primary you. What do you think would happen Democratic support if they started doing that and they started getting on camera all the time and really speaking in real terms about what's happening instead of all of the bullshit word salad stuff?
We could actually win.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
You know, like, but the reason why that's not going to happen is because these corporations fund a lot of the most powerful caucuses, like the Black Caucus and others in Washington, and help to spread that corruption. So that, and the problem with that is too, like, because I've thought about this myself, is that if we did that, that would be awesome. But the problem is when you have 200 plus Democrats in Congress, if you're going to have that kind of united message, you need a way of actually keeping them in line and not taking that corporate money. Because all it takes is one or two of them for Republicans to be like, oh my God, like you're lying to the American people and stuff. And we would need to figure out a way to actually keep them in line. And I think what that would be is like threatening them with primaries and throwing down a couple $1 million to challenge them. But the problem is Democrats don't have the courage to actually do that and stand for anything other than just what we aren't. And that's the thing that pisses me off most about our party right now is it sounds like we are telling the message I feel like we're telling the American people, especially young people, is like, hey guys, we know like you're 10 feet underwater right now. We're going to bring you 9 feet underwater. How's that? Does that
Right.
feel better than 11 feet? And it's like, fuck you. I want to actually have my head above water. I want to be on shore. And I don't want you talking about how great it is being at 9 feet because I'm still drowning. And if we don't give young voters and people of all ages an actual vision of what we are trying to build with a moral backbone for the future of this party and how we're going to stand up to special interests and build a government that works for the American people and not groups like AIPAC, not that are all these special interests that control our fucking party, we're fucked if we don't do that. Because people are increasingly, they're going to lose faith in us, and rightfully so, because we don't stand for anything in that case. And I want to have a party. We should have a party that actually does stand for something. And that's why Leaders We Deserve exists, is because we want to elect not just one, but a couple dozen Mr. Smiths and Mrs. Smith who go to Washington and really shake shit up and show that doing the right thing is not only what you should be doing, but it's the politically smart thing to be doing. Because the American people are not dumb. They know that there's corruption. They know that our system in many senses is rigged, and we are here to turn it around.
That right there is why I think the Democratic polling is so bad. They are operating under the assumption that their base is dumb. And that works to an extent with MAGA because Trump just moves the goalposts. You know, we're for Epstein release. No, we're against it. It's a witch hunt. They just, like whatever he says, they go along with. And the Democratic base is, I think, more inquisitive by nature, more fact seeking by nature. And when I look at this shit that we lost to a fucking idiot, a goddamn moron, Donald Trump twice. And then I see what their plan is right now, and I see what the leadership is right now. That's when I really was like, are you guys serious? Like, are you serious with your approach to this?
Jeffries, I'll tell you that much.
You what?
I honestly, at this point, I would rather have Pelosi than Jeffries.
Oh, there's no question. She whipped everybody into shape.
She
believed in something.
I don't agree with her on everything, but she got it done. She didn't just write fucking strongly worded letters. She really held Trump's feet to the fire.
She did. Remember when she ripped up his speech and then she patronizingly clapped at him? There was, I didn't agree with her on everything, but she was an excellent Speaker of the House. And you know what? She wasn't a pussy. And Hakeem just kind of is a pussy. And that's what bugs me about him. We've had him on the podcast, and I can see how in sound bites it can, it's like, okay, but now I'm just at the stage where every time he comes on my feed, I just am like, I wish somebody would primary him. And that's a really bad place to be when we're on the edge of just full. No, I don't even know we're on the edge anymore. We're in fascism now, like all we have is 2026 holding us together. And I just don't see leadership from him. I don't see it. I see when he pusses out on Zoran, to me, it's such a window into why the approval rating is so low.
Yeah, because we don't stand for anything. I think part of the reason why Trump is so popular, to be honest with you, as much as I disagree with him and don't like him, is because he obviously says what he thinks, even if he clearly contradicts himself.
Totally, yeah.
All the time. He clearly believes what he is saying, even if he is literally contradicting himself. And it is kind of remarkable that he is able to do that to that extent. But that is what the American people want more than anything. They want somebody who fucking says it like it is, even if they don't agree with it. Because
I agree.
What's remarkable about Trump, as a horrible person, to be clear, is that he is the most popular, president. He's incredibly popular given how many unpopular stances he actually has. And it's because he says what he actually clearly believes in. And I think what we believe in our party and a lot of our party's leadership is whatever's fucking good at the moment for us. And it's like, that is not actually believing in something. That's just being spineless. That's because what I think people forget, and I tell this to our candidates with Leaders We Deserve all the time. If you were compromising your values, let's say in Zoran's case, let's say he started compromising on AIPAC or he started compromising on other things and then he got elected. Is he actually winning? No. AIPAC is, right? And I think that's what 99% of people in DC forget, that if you compromise your values to get to power, you don't actually win. Somebody else does. And I think that's a huge part of our problem, is that we're endlessly compromising our values in order to gain power. When the reality is, the way that you gain power is you don't compromise your values and you figure out how to win, even if people say it's not going to be possible, like they did with Zoran.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
No, I completely agree. And I think he is a canary in a coal mine. And we're in Oklahoma, we're in a deeply red state, but I'm just going to tell you yes, Trump within the base is popular, but the people that are put off by him are moving further and further to the left. I went from a lib to far more progressive. Same with Pumps. And then all these rich ass white women that I know whose husbands work in the oil and gas industry are like leftists now. I'm talking like rich ass former Republicans who are totally, and so the Democratic Party is not reading this at all. And women in particular do not want to go backwards. And we are hearing the misogyny coming out of this administration. And when you look to people like Hakeem and Chuck writing strongly worded letters when women in our state are having to drive to other states to get abortion care, or they will die if they don't get it because the doctor's afraid of going to prison. And we're writing strongly worded letters and we're not endorsing a guy who won the Democratic primary. I'm so fucking mad about it. It makes me want to join your group and just primary all these fuckers from top to bottom, left to right, because I have had it. It makes me crazy.
Well, the good news is we're making progress, right? Like,
good.
There was a situation where Lloyd Doggett was possibly going to run again against Greg Casar because they were drawn into the same congressional district. And we came out and said, we're going to back Greg. Like, Lloyd is amazing, to be clear, but he's been there for 30 plus years at this point. And we shouldn't spend a bunch of money fighting each other when there's a great progressive like Greg who can take his place. And then Lloyd, in a very mature way, to his credit, decided not to run again after saying that he was going to. And then Jerry Nadler just announced that he's not going to run again.
Yeah.
And part of what I hate about this is, like, there's a lot of really great older people who are deciding not to run again. I'm glad that there are young people able to step up there. There's some not so great older people that we need not to run again, that are going to be challenged by us with leaders we deserve.
It's unbelievable, these old farts. I mean, we have people dying. They know they have cancer. They're dying in lead. And it's like, what the fuck? If you're dying and have cancer and 150 years old, don't run again. It's just not that hard.
How about this? It's like, if you cannot credibly tell me that democracy is in danger and the world is falling apart and all you're fucking doing is writing strongly worded letters. You can't credibly tell me that there is an authoritarian in the White House, but you don't want to talk about the fact that there are so many members of Congress that are so old they could not legally fly a commercial aircraft.
Yeah.
And act like that is okay.
I completely agree.
And here's one thing that is really off-putting.
Before we continue, let me be really clear on that.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt, but this is really important. There are lots of older people who are great, right? We see Bernie out there kicking ass. He's working his ass off, and he is not young by any means. But guess what? He's expanding the spotlight. He's raising up young people. He is leading by example. We see people like Rosa in Connecticut, another great young, older progressive who is getting shit done, right? There are terrible young people who are trying to take money from AIPAC and say, like, oh, I'm part of generational change. But really, they have the same stance as a lot of these 80-year-old blue dog Dems and are taking money from AIPAC. That's bullshit, right? So there's terrible young people and there's great older people. What we're talking about with Leaders We Deserve is getting more fighters and less folders in this party, regardless of their age.
That's a really good point. And I want to bring up one other point that I want to talk to you about. One thing that bothers me right now about a lot of the people in the Democratic Party is this idea that I think we have to have credible messengers. And I'm going to use Cory Booker as an example for this. So Cory Booker can be a very impassioned, very gifted speaker. He evokes emotion in the listener, and he has spoken about children being put in front of judges, immigrant children without lawyers that are 6 or 7 with an interpreter, and really good at social media, astute at social media and all of these things. And then it's silence on Gaza. silence. He cares about this kid, this kid, this kid, this kid,
right?
But not you. I don't care about you. I'm not going to talk about you. And then he does a photo shoot with Benjamin Netanyahu. And it also pisses me off that the same group want to hold us emotionally hostage and say, if you don't support Israel, then you're anti-Semitic. And I've had too much fucking therapy for that at 51 years old. Like, that's not how this works. The anti-Semites are incubated in MAGA culture. You want to talk about anti-Semites? Look no further than the evangelical Christians that are prepping for the rapture, that want the Jews in Israel so that then they can quickly send you to hell. And so the credible messenger, when I hear Corey speak about immigrant children, which I want to be with those kids. That's a fight that I want to unite with him on. But then it's crickets over a genocide that's happening in Gaza. Then nothing at that point, David, nothing that comes out of his mouth is credible to me, because I think we have to have credible messengers in our party.
Exactly. And, I know, as I say this, as I know a lot of the people we're talking about, that it's going to be harder for me to have fucking conversations with them, but I don't fucking care. If we can't call, they didn't call the Irish potato famine a genocide. That was a genocide that happened. That was human made, and that was intentional, right? A famine like is going on right now, that is human made. It's not because we don't have food. It's because they're not fucking letting it in. And it is, we are basically communicating to young people right now, like, okay, guys, we spent our whole time in 2018, 2020, right, 22, talking about how, like, we're the morally superior people. We do the right thing. We're for these values. And then all of a sudden we see a genocide that we enabled. And we have nothing to stand on, because people don't want to pick between, oh, well, they supported a genocide and the other side tried to overthrow the government and also supported a genocide. So I'm just going to support we don't want to, voters are tired of picking between the least shitty of two options.
Right.
They want to pick the best option. And I think as Democrats, the way that we do that is A, we grow a fucking spine and we primary anybody that doesn't have that. And B, we actually do our damn job and acknowledge, yeah, it's harder to be a Democrat. You know why? Because it's harder to make the government work than it is to intentionally make it fail and run on the idea that it sucks and then make it suck after getting elected and then get reelected on the idea that the government that you broke sucks. You actually try to make government fucking work. And we have a long history of doing that. But guess what? It doesn't come from spineless people. It comes from people like FDR, who said, you know what? We're actually going to do things like the New Deal. And if the Supreme Court gets in the way, fuck it, we'll expand it. And then all of a sudden, the New Deal happens, right? Because they tried to shut down the New Deal with the Supreme Court. And he was like, you know what? Maybe you guys should have age limits. And then they're like, actually, that New Deal thing is fine. Then, on top of that, it's people like LBJ, who I vehemently have a lot of problems with, to be clear, but clearly knew how to get shit done and build real power and make shit happen. And that's how movements like the Civil Rights Movement, through people like LBJ, with the experience that he had, starting when he was 28 years old in rural Texas, right? Starting out as a teacher, becoming a member of Congress at 28, worked his way up, gaining as much experience that he did, becoming a senator, then becoming the vice president, then the president, to be able to get so much done and be pushed from the left to actually pass really great policies like the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Act, like Medicare and Medicaid. And that is the party that we need to get back to, is actually having people with the power to do the right thing so that we can get them elected and have our movements on the outside of our government push them to do the right thing. Similar to what happened with Joe Biden and on guns, right? Historically, he's done a lot on guns, but because he has so much experience, we were still able to push him to get things done on guns.
Yeah. The thing about Joe Biden is, his presidency will always go down as the presidency that didn't stop authoritarian takeover. And the failure of Merrick Garland is just a snapshot as to what is wrong with the Democratic Party.
Absolutely. Democrats
operate on assumption politics. We assumed nobody would be crazy enough to vote for Donald Trump again. We assume all of these crazy right-wing conspiracy theories in this massive media echo chamber we don't need to respond to. Nobody in their right mind would think these crazy things. we have to address them. We have to say, this is what they're talking about. This is how fucking crazy they are. We need people in the DOJ that are fucking pit bulls, not some French poodle lapdog like Merrick Garland was. And he should have fucking released those Epstein files and passed them right over to Kamala, because that's how serious this was. And Biden was a serious, lifelong politician. And there's things that he did that were good. Infrastructure, CHIPS Act, on and on. None of it means jack shit right now, because you know what Trump's doing? He's been built by Donald J. Trump, and all the rubes believe him. And we have a dictator. It's not, are we on the precipice of this? No, we're in it. And he's going to do everything in his power to prevent 2026 from happening and or rig it, I think. Yeah.
Well, and also, like, for one, I don't know why we're acting surprised when, you know, we told our strategy last election cycle was to tell voters who told us three things, right? They said there's a genocide happening in Gaza. They said that prices are too high. And they said the president is too old. Our strategy is to tell them, no, they aren't. We have to defend Israel at all costs and keep arming them. Then we said prices aren't high. Look at the stock market. Then we said the president's not old. Look at this speech that he gave at the State of the Union. If you tell voters not to believe their goddamn eyeballs and wallets with the force of $2 billion behind you, you are going to lose them, especially when you put Kamala Harris, and look, she is not perfect by any means, to be clear, but when you put her on a fucking glass cliff at the most critical moment in American history and give her all of these shittiest jobs, like being fucking border czar, when you know there is a crisis there, so that you can run for re-election and give her all the shittiest issues to deal with, when it became a real fucking liability for her, and put her on that glass cliff. And also, as a party, we did that. We excommunicated basically anybody that dared to say maybe Joe Biden is too old to run again. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
We claimed to not be a fucking cult. We sure as hell didn't act like it. We sure as hell acted like we were one, leading up to that decision being made. And there's some real self-evaluation that we have to do on that, and hold true to the fact that, sure, Kamala Harris, absolutely, I don't think at that time was the right candidate, but we also put her in that position, that horrible position.
And I want to say this about Kamala, and I think this is important. Kamala is a lot more progressive than what the Democratic establishment made her run as, when, you know, trotting around with Liz Cheney, just like when Obama ran. Originally, he said, I'm not for gay marriage. And then he, quote, evolved. I really liked Kamala, but I felt like we should have had a robust primary. And I agree with you that she was kind of set up in this situation and did the best she could with the time that we had. But, you know, it's really devastating to live with the ramifications of political strategists that live on the coast that have no fucking idea what happens in the rest of the country. It's really frustrating.
And think they can gaslight the country with enough money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
all right, last
Trump
one.
Do it. So they think.
Our last had it or hit it. Had it or hit it, the United States of America.
I've had it with our lack of imagination and believing that the best is behind us for many people in this country, and many Republicans that want us to believe that the best is behind us. And that's what we need to go back to. And I would say I'd hit it because I think that time and time again, this country has proven people wrong. Right. We've started out in an incredibly hard place where barely anybody in this country had any rights in the first place. And despite all of that, despite a civil war, despite so much more, we managed to actually, through democracy and a long democratic process, expand it so that people could. And that is fucking remarkable that we still exist at all. It kind of amazes me, to be honest with you. And it is a huge source of inspiration for me of like what incredible things we could be capable of if we had a stronger Democratic Party, if we had people with a fucking spine, if we did the right thing and didn't just do it once it was the last resort, right? And that's why I would say it's hit it, because I think that the original idea of this country, right, our motto, E pluribus unum, out of many one, is incredibly powerful. And I think with the right leadership, we can get through this, but it's going to take new people. It's going to take new blood. And what gives me hope is that great generations are not born. If studying history taught me anything, it's that they're made in the crucible of awful, circumstances and real fucking challenges, right? And sure, you have the Neville Chamberlains of the world that are out there, but then you have other leaders that come up after them. And I'm very excited for those future leaders that are there to rise up and meet this moment, because our generation knows, as a generation that I was born a year before 9/11 happened. I was, raised through the wake of the financial crisis with my generation. Then we went through COVID. Then we went through all these school shootings and gun violence and climate crises and so much more. We as a generation have never truly seen our country united in any true sense or form. At every turn, when it was time for us to be united, when it was time for us to come together against something like a pandemic, we turned against each other. Because of weak leadership. And I believe that someday, maybe not this election, maybe not the next one, but sooner or later, a leader or a few leaders are going to rise to meet that moment and help bring this country back together, because this generation has had it with the instability and weakness of what many of these politicians have brought us. And we don't want to be a generation that goes on to teach our kids how to live through school shooter drills, because we know that it's possible. Joe Biden's generation, they didn't go through school shooter drills, but they did go through nuclear bomb drills. And that generation went on to pass some of the largest nuclear arms reduction treaties in human history. And I think for our generation, given the fact that the bomb for us is going off multiple times a week at this point, it feels like, that we can do that too. But we just have to bring ourselves into power.
I really like everything you have to say. I like you a lot. I like how feisty you are. Love it. Hit it. Haven't had it with David Hogg. I love that your generation has been done dirty, truly, by so much of the American policies. And I'm glad that you're going to, ring lead and, get the bull by the horns and get organized, because it has to happen. And it has to have people of your age group really pushing older people like my co-host here, Pumps, further
She's
to
4
the
years
left.
younger than me.
Thank you so much, David.
Thanks, David.
Thank you for having me.
I like how feisty he is.
I love how feisty he is. And I like, what I'm going to start using that he said? The circus of bullshit.
He said that. But you know what made me sad? Like right towards the end when we hung up, like he's here, like 17 of his teachers and classmates got murdered. Yeah. And there's this whole generation that, our government, our systems, our laws, the unrestrained capitalism, and now his life's work is this, which is totally commendable, but it didn't have to be this way.
No, it did not have to be this way. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Patriots, gay triots, they triots, black triots, and brown triots.
Fuck off! Not to them, to the people that don't support them.
All right, listen up, listener. I've moved to New York City, and this is our first I've Had It. We filmed some iHip News, but this is our first I've Had It with me in the big city. I finally got to escape the Bible Belt after taking care of every single person I could possibly take care of for the last 25 years. And now it's my midlife gap year. I've always wanted to live in a blue state. I always wanted to live around non-evangelical Christians. And today is day one, and it is chef's kiss.
I love it. You seem like 1,000,000 pounds lifted off of you. Just not being around all the MAGA.
It doesn't feel very MAGA up here, which is great. Pumps, what have you had it with?
Okay, what I've had it with, and just let me take a second. I've had it, and I've said it 1,000,000 times, with adults taking babies into adult-only spaces, i.e. movie theaters, restaurants, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to take that one step further. I got my nails done over the weekend. There was a baby in there. That's an adult-only space. There are no babies at a nail salon. The baby starts screaming, crying. And the other women in the nail salon were goo-goo gawing, normalizing this woman. I would even dare say encouraging her to bring this baby back. Again, I think she should have been heaped with ridicule and shame and dirty looks the entire time. There's no business for a baby to be at a nail salon. And it was like active. So I'm taking 8 to 10 months. And these women were just like, oh, he's so cute. Da, da, da. And I was like, y'all are part of the problem. So I've had it with other people. And I'm going to say women because there was one man in there with me and we were rolling our eyes and sighing, like looking at each other. But I've had it with women enabling other women to take babies to adult spaces. They should be banned.
I agree. I don't like babies in places, but I remember being a young mother and you have this baby and you're thinking maybe they're going to nap. I remember Josh and I once went to the movie and that we thought for sure the baby was going to sleep through the whole movie. Well, the movie was it was like one of those surround sound things. Of course, the baby started crying and we left. I get where you're coming from. And babies can drive me crazy, but I'm just so like focused on MAGA that I can't enjoy a grievance like that. Like that is such a luxury to be irritated at a nail salon at an 8-month, 10-month-old baby. And I'm just so consumed with like, okay, he's having Texas invade Chicago.
Right.
And I can't enjoy the petty grievances that brought us to start this podcast. And I feel really robbed from that.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. It's hard. Like I had to really pull myself away from it to have, and I've had it outside of the Supreme Court, Mike Johnson protecting pedophiles, like the whole laundry list, the whole nine. But, yeah, that just really got under my skin, but I completely agree. I mean, we're to the point now that like people, when we're driving around when I'm driving my car and I see people driving past me, I'm like, do they know that they live in an authoritarian country? Have they been affected by the fascism yet? Because every single one of us will be affected. But some people, if you don't follow the news cycle and you just, you don't really follow the news, you watch, sitcoms on TV, don't read the paper, like, they don't feel it yet. They feel higher prices. They feel inflation. They may sense an uptick in racism. But my guess is some people still don't feel it yet. And I think they will.
In suburban Oklahoma City, where you live, there's no way they feel it. These people are not vulnerable. They've never been vulnerable. They live in a gated community. And yeah, they might notice that eggs are higher and they might decide, oh, I don't want to follow the news cycle because they haven't ever had to. Because that's what amazes me about these MAGA people is you have everything you've ever wanted and you're mad about Bad Bunny. Like they are losing their minds. And so when you think of the list of all of the things these people are triggered by, it's like, Taylor Swift was one of them. Now we've got Puerto Ricans, Bad Bunny. They seem to not understand that Puerto Rico is a part of the United States. Women, liberal women, gay people, drag queens, trans people, books, Black people, and it goes on and on. It's like a minefield of triggers for these people. I've never seen people pitch such a big fit about the Super Bowl. It's so stupid that they are losing their minds. I was on Twitter earlier and it's like, Bad Bunny needs to be canceled. We need to boycott the NFL. And I'm just like, just don't fucking watch it. Or maybe do watch it. And maybe it's a lot better than the boring all white person cracker ass band that your ass listens to. But I think the thing is when you're driving around and you look at those people, they've never been vulnerable a day in their lives. They've never had to experience what so many Americans experience, which created this vacuum for this fascism to take hold. And it's not like, are we on the precipice anymore? We live in a fascist country.
No question. I completely agree. Like we're past, are we there yet? We have arrived. We're parked.
And okay, so let me tell you what I've had it with.
Okay.
I've had it with Zillow. So sometimes I get on Zillow and I like to look at houses in certain neighborhoods or apartments in certain neighborhoods. I want it to be private. It's my thing, right? Like I don't want any follow-up conversation, but sometimes I'm like, that girl is kind of a bitch. I wonder what the inside of her house looks like. And then you can enter the address in Zillow and then you can go through the rooms if it's ever been photographed before. And I'll be damned if Zillow doesn't follow up with like 15 to 20 emails more houses for you. Here's that house you looked at. So I unsubscribe and I go and I'm like, it's one of these unsubscribe options where there's like 100 options.
Right.
But unsubscribe from all Zillow contact. So I go about 2 days and I don't get on Zillow at all. And I've unsubscribed from everything. And then they start it all up again. Zillow is like the biggest freak show stalker on the planet. I'm like, wait, how? I thought I was on Google, like being a nut, looking at the inside of this person's house. And I didn't want you to keep track of that and email me about it later. And that's what they're doing. It's like, you kind of want to be psycho and like, Pumps, I wonder what the inside of her house looks like. And probably before you bought it, there were interior pictures of it, right?
Right.
So you can give yourself a little tour. Then Zillow, if the house is on the market, they follow up with you. Here, there's a price drop, blah, 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 or the neighbor's house is for sale. And then it's like, I didn't want any record of this. I was really bored, trying to avoid the news cycle and just looking at some real estate that I have zero interest in buying.
Right.
Why are you documenting this and emailing me about it? This was private. This was a psycho thing I went through in my head. I don't want records of this. I certainly don't want email chains about it.
Okay, wait, a couple follow-up questions. Did you ever enter your email or phone number?
No.
So they just start texting you and
Emailing. They email.
Okay, and why have you not told me that you can do that about other people's houses? I had no idea.
It's the best thing ever. Yeah.
I didn't even know.
Yeah. So say like there's somebody's house, like some girl that thinks she's hot shit or some guy that thinks he's hot shit. You're like, I wonder what the inside of their house looks like. Well, if it's ever been photographed before, it will be on Zillow. And then you can give yourself a little tour of the house. But now Zillow is like
Stalking.
the hall monitor, like tattletale. And I was just like, wait a minute. I didn't want this shared with the public. Like this was a private psycho moment that I had, Zillow. I don't need you emailing me about it. I don't need to be reminded that I'm a nosy bitch. All right. I already know that. I don't need an announcement from Zillow in my email box telling me, hey, remember that house you looked at? I'm just like, I do, but you shouldn't.
You shouldn't know.
That was private, Zillow.
That was private. Okay, let me ask you this. Do you think that your information went to like the realtor or the owner?
No.
I mean, is it like the biggest bust on the planet? No.
No, I mean, I don't think so, but I don't trust Zillow as far as I can throw them.
No. Mm-mm. No, I don't.
And
either.
they are email terrorists. I'll tell you that much. Sometimes I've looked down, it's 10 from Zillow right in a row. They are out of control. If we lived in a normal democracy,
right,
I would be like, we need to talk to some people about reining in Zillow. They need this email privacy invasion and stalking needs to be regulated. But of course, you know, we're trying to fight for the 2026 elections.
Right. And are we winning?
All right.
I don't know.
Welcome to I've Had It. I'm Jennifer.
I'm Angie, HBIC for Beaver.
Kylie's here. Kylie, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
How is Oklahoma?
It's good. And Jen on Zillow, I can tell you what every single house in my neighborhood looks like. I can tell you what every person I have met once. Yeah. And I've had it email me and be like, hey, are you still interested in 500 Northwest 30th? And I'm like, whoa.
Right?
Yeah.
So you've experienced this, right, Kylie? Have you ever gone to look at somebody's house? Like, she thinks that her shit doesn't stink. So I wonder what her house looks like. Have you ever done that, Kylie?
Absolutely.
Yes. Nobody told me about this.
And then Zillow follows up and tattletales. It's a little narc, a little snitch, a little fucking snitch in your email box. I've had it.
And I have to tell you, my girlfriend is a real estate agent. I'm pretty sure Zillow illegally, I mean, not illegally, but secretly gets your info and it's a lead for the realtor. Like, I think so.
I'm so fucked.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so fucked.
That's like being busted,
Jesus.
like under surveilling somebody's house. That's what we did. People that are like younger than me, they forget that back in the day, we had to do real-time surveillance. It wasn't follow the location on your friends or break into the phone. It was, you got your ass in the car, parked 2 blocks down and watched what was coming in and out of your ex's apartment. That's how it was. By the hour.
All right, Kylie, what you got for us?
I've got some reviews today This first one is 4 stars, titled See You Next Tuesday. And Anita writes, as your sole listener, who you frequently refer to, I have to extend sincere gratitude that you hung on so long waiting for me to find this podcast, as it was within the past month that I found you. #blessed. I have binged over 150 episodes so far. Although I may be closer to Kylie's age, Mima and Jessica have proven to be my algorithm besties, and my God, what a journey this has been. I truly would inject this podcast into my veins. However, I cannot rate you higher than you rate yourselves, hence the 4-star review. Fuck off.
That's so
So
clever.
I need to tell our new listeners what the Jessica thing is. So Kylie had like voice memos, and this woman was like, I just love this podcast. It's so hilarious. That Pumps and Jessica, just a white woman, Gen X. And so, of course, Kylie and Pumps loved it. And then all the listeners picked up on it. So if you ever see like Jessica and you're like, wait, I thought her name was Jennifer.
Right.
That's what that's about. Okay, Kylie, who's next?
Okay, this next one is 5 stars, titled America's Top DEI Podcast. And they write, just finished the hottest book of the summer and the it book of the fall. I started listening to I've Had It 2 years ago, and Jen and Pump's witty banter and liberal stance was refreshing in the hellscape that is America. Your book was a beautiful testament to female friendship, heartache, and moving forward. Love you, ladies. Keep fighting the good fight.
Well, how
That's so
lovely.
nice. And we've actually got 5 stars, unlike our sole listener. Yeah, there's our book.
There's our book. Get it.
Y'all
You
need to
can
buy it. Life
know
is
where
a
the
lazy
camera is.
Susan of shit sandwich. It's right in front of you. Okay. Kylie, I think we have some news stories. Why don't you pop up the first one? Fake nurse arrested after treating 4,486 patients, was even promoted for doing a great job.
This is terrifying. And you hear this, remember that there was a whole documentary about this transplant surgeon that said that
He did the
had
esophagus.
answers and he was killing people. And it's like, it goes on. This person wasn't even a nurse. But I hate to bring it back to what's going on in the United States, but we have people dressing up as ICE agents and terrorizing other people. And it's just horrifying. The whole thing's horrifying. It's awful. The nurse thing. Ugh.
Okay, next, Kylie. Man steals $122 million from Facebook and Google by sending random bills, which they paid. I think that's pretty clever. I mean, I wonder how he ultimately ended up getting busted. Kylie, do you have any more info on that?
I've got the news story here. It says between 2013 and 2015, Valdis, a Lithuanian national, carried out a sophisticated scam targeting Facebook and Google. He created a fake company and posed as this company as a legitimate supplier to both tech companies. Using forged docs and fake email addresses, he tricked the companies into making multiple large payments. The scheme went undetected for a time, partly due to the company's vast budgets. So it looks like eventually they figured out his scam, but he got away with it for a long time because nobody pays attention.
And they
Here's
just
my
paid the
thing.
bill.
After the first 10 million or so, I would stop. But he just kept doing it and kept doing it. I would just take my 10 million that I scanned right off into the sunset. If it was that, by comparison, that small of a number, I don't think they would have ever noticed.
Yeah, probably at some point there would have been some Zillow CPA that went in there and sniffed it out. There's always some skunk at the garden party sniffing out your little, clandestine activities. And Zillow is the ringleader. Yeah. All right, Kylie, what's next? The internet will be more dead than alive by 2028. Kylie, do you have more to share with us on this? Okay, I do. Half of the internet is already bots. Within 3 years, humans may be the minority online. The dead internet theory suggests bots and AI now create more online content than humans, turning feeds into endless loops of algorithmic junk.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I read an article that said that this year will mark the decline of social media.
We can only hope.
There's some
go ahead.
Elon Musk's X is just full of bots. It's full of so many bots that have whatever propaganda they want to propagandize. And one of them is like, I used to be a Republican and now I'm a Democrat. I mean, I used to be a Democrat and now I've switched and I'm a Republican. And it's all used. It's a weapon in this fascist takeover because they breathe off of oxygen, off of propaganda. And these bots just provide such quick information delivery of all of the propaganda. So it's really terrorizing. You can see how fast this has happened with Trump. And I think a lot of it has to do with his partners that own all of these social media platforms.
It'll be interesting to see how TikTok goes now that it's completely been taken over by the Israeli government.
Oh, well, I mean, I think we all know exactly how that's going to go. I mean, it's anything about the facts on the ground that are happening in Gaza is not going to be, fed in the algorithm. It's going to be suppressed. It's going to be a lot of Zionist messaging. It's going to be a lot of pro-MAGA messaging because Benjamin Netanyahu has bragged ad nauseum that he can control America. And specifically, Donald Trump's about as easy to control as any leader you've ever seen. I mean, look at the way Vladimir Putin dog walks him.
Yeah, you're right. I was just kind of hoping that the people on TikTok, having been aware of it, would not completely buy it immediately.
I think that's not how this works. I think that propaganda and algorithms and radicalization happen because you have young people that you get on and then you spend time with something. It kind of defies critical thinking. That's why it's so effective. Look at how much Fox News has radicalized conservatives to be full-blown fascists. Yeah. So, and these are some educated people, some of them Supreme Court justices that have been radicalized by Fox News. For us to have an expectation that teenagers or early 20-year-olds are going to be able to sniff out massively manipulative propaganda is just a pipe dream.
Yeah, I think you're right. Sadly.
All right. Well, we have a guest coming up. It's a guest that I'm excited to have on. I was kind of surprised when they reached out and wanted him to come on because I browbeat him all the time. And it's Senator Cory Booker. Excuse me. And so I, of course, want to have him on because I want to talk to him about his AIPAC donations. I want to talk to him about his adoration and admiration for Benjamin Netanyahu. It's very alarming to me. It's very alarming to me that somebody that stands so clearly for civil rights in the United States of America can deny them to Palestinians. And so I'm eager to talk to him because he's good on a lot of things, but lately he's proven to be somewhat of a just down the line, disappointing corporate Democrat. And so I'm eager to talk to him. I'm hopeful that he is evolving and changing with the times because corporate Democrats, that is not working right now.
No, I completely agree. And I am very impressed that he's coming back on the podcast. And I hope we can have a really frank discussion where we all learn and get more clarity on issues.
Congratulations on your engagement.
Thank you very, very much. I'm not worthy, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful.
Is this going to be your first wife?
Yeah. She gets mad when I call her my ex-girlfriend. It will be my only wife. I'm such a nerd that I look at and I'm so afraid of, since I was in my 20s, marriage doesn't work out. So I did the research for guys getting married in their 50s. The divorce rate is very low.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I would
think guys getting married for their first time in their 50s. I
think so. I think we're much better people by the time we're in our 50s. And so that makes sense.
Much more. I told people keep saying, "Oh, you waited for the right one," and I go, "No." I said I waited until I became the right one because I wouldn't have wanted to date myself in my 30s.
All right, Senator Booker, what have you had it with?
I've had it with being single. 100%. Being single is not fun, especially when you're trying to date. And as a United States senator, it's been a difficult, challenging time. So I've had it with that, and I'm very psyched that I'm getting married.
When's the wedding?
We're going to do it before the end of the year. Quick. We don't want to wait long. And we both want to get married quick, and we're both hoping to have kids at some point, sometime soon. So, there's a lot to do, and time is of the essence.
Well, we want to talk to you about, the country. And it feels like the Democratic opposition is just not getting it. There are votes that you've made that were heartbreaking to me, like the vote for Kushner. That really pissed me off because I feel like this administration, it's not, are they fascist? They are fascist. It's not, we're on the precipice of fascism. We have Pritzker, Texas is sending troops to Illinois. And I feel like the opposition needs to be fuck no across the board. We're not giving you a centimeter. And I think there's been a lot of capitulation. I think there's been a lot of Neville Chamberlain type appeasement from Democratic leadership. And you're one of them that's kind of been disappointing to me because we podcasted before. They're serious about Project 2025. They're going to do all this shit. And they're doing every single bit of it. So what do you think? What do you have to say about the capitulation that you've participated in and where the Democratic Party is right now?
Well, first of all, I would say very pointedly that one of the things I dislike about the Democratic Party is that we do a circular firing squad all the time. Their party, they disagree. There's a wild disagreements in the Republican tent, and yet they don't shoot at each other. And we have a really good way of holding up these purity tests that if I agree with you on 95...
That's such bullshit. That is such bullshit. They fire at each other all the time. Trump has sent so many people out to pasture, so many people that he calls rhinos. Liz Cheney can tell you that they have the firing squad as well. It's not a purity test. It's are we in this fight, and are we being beholden to corporations and corporate interests, or are we really the party of the working class? And that's what I think the message is.
Two things I'll say. First of all, if everybody in your coalition agrees with you on everything, your coalition's not big enough. If
it's a cult.
If we don't have disagreements, then we're talking in an echo chamber. Thank God I sit in a caucus with people. I couldn't win in some of my colleague states, perhaps, but we have lots of different agreements, but we are united in the fight against Trump. And I'll say number two, which is really important, is that, we feel the existential urgency. And even though we don't agree on everything, I'm in the trenches with some of the best fighters I have, from veterans like Mark Kelly and Tammy Duckworth, who have, I know Mark's voted on some people I didn't vote for. So we may not be absolutist, but the fighters that I'm in the trench with right now, the sacrifices that they're making for this fight is pretty tremendous. So I have disagreements with a lot of people. Look, I'm one of a handful of people that don't take corporate PAC money. I don't understand my Democratic
What
Party.
about APAC money? You take APAC money, don't you?
A minuscule percentage of my resources come from
I read it's like 800,000.
Yeah, but that's a lifetime number of raising tens of millions of dollars. Let me give you the right stat. The majority of my money comes from small dollar contributions. My last report, I think 76% of it came from people that gave $25 or less. So this to me is about, again, we could pick at each other, or we could do what we need to be doing right now, is joining in a chorus of conviction to condemn it. And again, I'm a child of civil rights activists. You think Malcolm X and Martin Luther King agreed on everything? No. Do you think Fred Shuttle, in fact, Ella Baker had lots of criticisms about King. But when it came to the fight, they joined together and created a movement that was successful. And that's really what my focus is. And as the only person in the caucus that lives in a low-income Black and brown neighborhood below the poverty line. I still remember when some progressives from the suburbs came down to protest me, and they were literally chased away by my neighbors because we are in an urgency. Every day I see it. We are in an urgency where real people are getting hurt. When I go up and down in New Jersey, they don't care about the fact that I took 1% of my money from some group. They care about, what are you doing to restore my health care? What are you doing to fight for my fact that I can't make rent? And in my caucus right now, we're standing up and fighting for those things and not capitulating, as you said, to Donald Trump's attempts to deny 22 million Americans health care, to see healthcare costs double for lots of them.
Well, I think the base feels like right now, and I know that you're in the Beltway, but I think the Democratic base feels like there is a disconnect. Like we hear you, like when you did your 25-hour speech, I was like, go Corey. I love this. That is amazing. And then there's a photo shoot with you with Benjamin Netanyahu. And I was just like, what in the actual fuck? Like, how can he do that? It was heartbreaking. I felt betrayed.
Yeah.
And that is, and that, hang on. And that doesn't just happen in an echo chamber. It's important when there are Democrats like you, where the base, we should make each other better. We need to evolve. And I love that you come on here. We need to have these conversations. It's not a purity test. We want credible messengers, because when we are, down the middle and beholden to corporate interests, then we leave this vacuum, and that's how fascism has flourished. And so for myself and a lot of our listeners, when I saw the picture with Benjamin Netanyahu, I felt like it diminished your 25 hours. That's how it felt to me.
So a few things. One is, I work in the Beltway. I live in the Central Ward in Newark, New Jersey. Streets that a lot of folks tell folks, why would you demean and degrade my communities? I keep a little picture here of the first place I represented in 28 years old, which is a Black community that's struggling. And we've transformed our schools, our supermarkets, new parks, urban farms, and the like. And the wonderful thing about those folks that I serve is that none of them question where I stand and how long, for more than a quarter of a century, have I stood with the people in their neighborhoods. Number two, so I may work in the Beltway, but I know where I came from and I know who got me here. And it's the struggling people that our party has done a pretty shitty job for, to be honest with you.
I agree.
Okay, number two, when you say things like Kushner this and whatever, I remember the people who actually, when the Democratic Party was doing things like passing crime bills that put Black people like me, when I was in my 20s and stopped by the police all the time, behind bars, the Democratic Party failed and fueled mass incarceration. And so the people that were there for me 30 years ago, doing prisoner reentry programs, getting people jobs and housing, I'm sorry. People like Kushner, who was there 30 years ago fighting for those fights, I'm not going to forget that they fought for Black people when other people seem to be gung-ho with, hold on, let me finish.
Wait, is this the first CARE Act? What was that act called that you passed?
Well, that was only 2 years ago, the First Step Act.
What was that? Okay, I've read about that. It's really good. Yes, it's excellent.
And I'm sorry, I have to work across the aisle, and Charlie Kushner was, but for him, it wouldn't have gotten done. So when I go home, people do know people that got out of prison because of the First Step Act, and they knew the bipartisan coalition. Third, I'm sorry, I have real problems with Benjamin Netanyahu. Outrageous things that he's doing. The way you fight for those things is you sit down face to face with somebody and you fight with them. I'm not going to be outside of the room screaming. I want to look him in the eye, like me, Amy Klobuchar, and a whole bunch of other people did, and talk to him about humanitarian aid. And if people want to criticize me for it, then go ahead. But I'm leading in the Senate on West Bank crises right now, from their attempts to annex it or illegal settlements. I lead the legislation to sanction the people that are doing that. I can stand strong on my principles and still work to end these things. And I don't mind taking criticism, from folks that don't necessarily agree with my tactics. But we on this podcast right now, we share the same aim. Ceasefire now, humanitarian aid now, return the hostages now. And I'm going to.
Do you think he's a war criminal, Benjamin Netanyahu? Do you think he's a war criminal?
Again, these are questions that a lot of people think are the important litmus tests that are loaded and hot. My urgency is to be an effective leader in bringing an end to this crisis. And I get these questions all the time that, to me, undermine my urgency.
I think the thing that Democrats get so frustrated with, where we are right now, where you see like the Zoran Mamdanis and the Graham Plattners rise up, because they can go on podcasts and you can say, do you think Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal? And they just say, yes. And that's the end of it. It's not all of the rhetoric answering. It's like what happens to Democratic politicians, they go through this like prism, and then we can't ever get like the answer to yes or no conversations like you do with Bernie and others. And that's the frustration for the Democratic base with leadership.
Do I think Netanyahu is worse than Trump? Yes. Do I think that we right now in America should be doing everything possible to bring peace, not just to that crisis, but to the ones that shock me that no one talks about? And I hope, and I don't know if you guys have or not, but crises like Sudan, where there are American weapons literally causing horrific, in fact, by double, triple, quadruple, it's the biggest humanitarian crisis that we're not talking about as a country. When I was coming up, everybody was talking about Darfur. Now the moral silence is outrageous when American weapons are being used in that conflict.
And the same with Israel. I mean, our weapons, and even Democratic politicians signed them before they were sent over to kill kids. I really feel like if we get through this fascism, we have to have conversations like this, Senator. I think
but you're right. Important. Where you're right is the Democratic Party. As a Black guy in America, there are so many things we don't talk about that we need to have an honest conversation about. You're right. I work in a place that corruption has been accepted. Why are people taking corporate PAC money? Why are people trading stocks? I hold myself to the standard of what I want to see other elected officials. If I was a guy in Newark that I talk to about that don't believe their politicians stand and fight for them. And so I agree with you that there are real corruptions that we tolerate that we need to do something about. Campaign finance is one of the things. This is why I do not take certain money from everything from oil company C-suite folks to pharma company C-suite folks. These are all things that I believe. But every day that I get up here, I know the people of New Jersey want me to fight for them and their interests. And so when it comes to the fights we're in right now, I'm happy to be in a trench with everybody in my caucus, from Mark Warner all the way to Bernie Sanders, the whole caucus. We are united in a fight right now that I'm hoping, despite the disagreements within the Democratic tent, that we all can unify and say it's outrageous for people's healthcare costs to double their premiums. It's outrageous for 22 million Americans to lose their healthcare. It's outrageous for hospitals to have longer waits at the emergency room because people are going there to get their primary care. I go home every day, as I told you, or at least every week, to my community. And a lot of the things that I often talk about on podcasts like this, they don't give a damn about. They want to know what's going on with my rising costs, what's going on with my loss of health care, what's going on with the poisoning of my communities, because everybody wants to talk about them being an environmentalist, but nobody's talking about the toxic sites that are in communities like mine and community. What's going on with the fact that giving birth in this country is one of the most dangerous jobs you can have, especially for Black women. And so I hear you when I'm down here in the Beltway or get on podcasts. Everybody wants to talk, well, you didn't vote 100% this way. Nobody asks me about that in communities that I'm fighting for in New Jersey. What they want to know is, what are we doing to make the American dream, that I can buy a home, that I can afford health care, that I can afford to pay the groceries or pay for childcare? What are you doing? I spoke to the Teamsters last week. Packed room. Pissed at the Democrats, pissed at the Republicans. By the end of the speech, I had them on their feet applauding because I was saying things that they're not used to Democrats talking about, which is screw all this stuff that talked about up here. What are you doing for me and my family to represent us? I want to get the Democratic Party back to the basics that makes people believe in us again. And first, it is getting rid of corruption. And corruption means that I know my politician isn't bought and paid for, that I know my politician isn't trading stocks on information that I don't have, that I know my politicians aren't playing to somebody else's tune. Second is, what are you doing to make my life economically easier? Because 60% of this country can't afford America anymore, can't afford the American dream. Third, what are we doing for families? Because raising a kid in this country increases your chance of going below the poverty line by over 100% just by having a child, because that's how expensive it is. And again, healthcare, being able to have a child without dying. These are the basics our party wants. People don't want all the bells and whistles. They don't want all the bullshit political talks that we all always get tripped up on. What are you doing for us? And the fight that we're in right now in Washington against Donald Trump, and you and I might agree on a lot of the things, threats to democracy, a lot of these things that we talk about. But when I go home, people are just so pissed off that they can't afford America anymore. And that's what we need to be talking about.
Pivoting just a slight bit. I have been so profoundly disappointed with the leadership. Like, for example, your colleague, Chuck Schumer, let's just take him because you're in the Senate. I feel like every single day, Democratic leadership in the federal government should be out saying Donald Trump has dementia. He's running around calling it the Department of War when it is the Department of Defense. He is lying about inflation. I mean, just every day he's demented. He should be impeached. He's lying. And I am not seeing that. I see sound bites a little bit here and there. And what can we do to break through to the Democratic leadership? We need every single day. And I understand talking about healthcare and women dying. We live in abortion ban America, or I do. And so I understand women are dying. Adversely impacted even from that is Black women. I have seen the research. I'm involved in an organization that we're trying to bring that to the voters. But right now, like, we're fighting fascism. We're fighting military masked in the streets. So why do I feel so disappointed with the federal leadership when I see like Gavin Newsom and, the mayor of Boston, J.B. Pritzker, they're out there fighting every day. And I see a vacuum.
Okay. So I mean, again, I was raised in the civil rights tradition by parents that fought for it. And so these are the things I know. When I was home in January, I got cornered in the supermarket in Newark, one we brought into a food desert. And my folks know me, and they get upset with me. Why aren't you Democrats doing this? And I tell them, well, we're not in the majority. We can't. Why aren't you doing it? Well, we can't call hearing. And then after going back and forth, this guy who's known me since the 90s, and I had a beautiful afro, said to me, are you an American or Americant? And then he says to me, he goes, where's the guy I voted for, who did a hunger strike for 10 days in the projects and made everybody in New Jersey pay attention and we solved problems? Where's the guy that moved into a mobile home and parked it on the worst drug corners in our city? He started marching through my career over 25 years and saying, this is the guy that I knew that made a way out of no way, didn't wait for leaders, didn't wait for permission, fought the fight. That's why we went back. And I said to Hakeem Jeffries, we need to do an all-day sit-in on the Capitol steps that broke through, had over 100 million impressions. That's why I did 25 hours on the Senate floor, which was to break through. 340 million people liked it on TikTok. What I'm saying to you right now is that I've learned in my life, in all my battles, to end a corrupt machine in New Jersey, to turn around a city nobody said could be turned around, and even right now in this fight, that leadership is not a job, it's not a title or a position, it's action and example. And you say Chuck Schumer this, Chuck Schumer this. I'm telling you right now, most people in my state do not know who Chuck Schumer is.
Right.
They don't. They can't name him. They can't name Hakeem Jeffries. But I try to do things down here that are different, unusual, and that people know. I know my name ID in my state is pretty high. People know I'm fighting for them, and I'm finding creative ways to doing it. But that's not because I'm a senator. When my staff and I sat around and said, what do people know you for? What do they know you? How do they know you about? How do they know what you're fighting every day to try to get done? It's really about, where do you stand in a crisis? And so I hear you guys about Chuck Schumer this, Chuck Schumer this. I do not go back and prosecute a case on Chuck Schumer in New Jersey at all. I prosecute cases for my communities that are desperately hurting right now. And if I spent all my energy on who's the leader of the Senate, as opposed to just being a damn leader myself, and finding ways to let my people know what the issues are and fighting for them. Let me be blunt with you. I'm on 20 social media platforms. Just pick one of them. Instagram last time, 50 million views just this last month on the content that we put out there. Most of them are people that follow me in the New Jersey area, because we want people to know what we're about and what we're fighting for. And we find crazy creative ways to break through and let people know. We've championed the issues you're talking about. I've led in the Senate and got a lot done on extending Medicaid and dealing with the maternal mortality crisis. I'm the one that called Biden up and got all the lead pipes in the ground, the funding for those things pulled out. the receipts I'm able to bring back to my communities of real things that we can point to is why I'm here in this Senate. And so I understand the politics, but people aren't concerned about politics. They're concerned about, are you making progress for my community? And that's what this fight is about. We have the leverage right now. We are standing in the right. We are right on the pain point of Americans. And if we do not fight here and fight now, you all know this, that the tsunami that's coming, the 2026 Medicaid changes, the 2026 ACA, this is stuff I don't say, the ACA premiums and subsidies, that's all gobbledygook to most Americans. But we know that if we don't do something come January next year, and then at the end of next year, between the Medicaid and the ACA, it will be a healthcare disaster like this country has never seen, affecting everyone. Because if you don't get your healthcare through the ACA or through Medicaid, and you go to the emergency room when you have a disaster, and now suddenly the emergency room lines are so much longer, everybody is going to be affected. And so I live in urgencies. I'm not trying to pass somebody's period. I am who I am. This is where I stand. I could do no other. I've raised to stand in my own integrity and to fight in ways that I want to show my constituents nobody's willing to go to the mat as much as I am, whether it's not going to the bathroom for freaking 25 hours, which is hard, or whether it's delivering on things that are not sexy. But when we were able to significantly increase the funding for sickle cell anemia, which is talk about racism, which was a disease that affected more people, but that got less funding than other diseases. People in my community, and happened to be all across America, said, thank God. That's what I'm fighting for. Am I making somebody's life better? And I will stand with you on real corruption, whether it's at the Supreme Court or the crypto president that we have, or even my colleagues in the Democratic Party that still think they have to take money from PepsiCo or whatever corporation you want to do, like Apple. We have work to do. And in this moment, I want to unify people. The three of us, 90% we agree on. Let's put the 10% aside.
I agree.
I would actually say 98 because I listen to you guys and I cheer you in the mornings when I do. 98% of the stuff we agree on. Let's unify, because I know from the old African saying that sticks in a bundle can't be broken. Spider webs united can tie up a lion. We need that kind of strength right now more than ever, because what's at the stake is what I go home to Newark and people are losing their health care and get their health care in hospital emergency rooms or their prenatal care at the time of their giving birth.
Senator, the bill that you passed for the, I think it was cocaine crack disparity. My husband's a criminal defense lawyer, and he said it's changed. I mean, it's changed so many of his clients' lives. So, and I know that you do really good work. You bring up a really good
data point on that. It immediately, over time, it's been thousands more, but immediately got 2,000 people out of prison. 98% of them were black and brown. And most people, I'm sorry, they don't understand that we still live in a country where forget me, because I'm a privileged African-American man, but the average black guy has a 4 times more likely chance of getting arrested for marijuana usage. Still today, there are thousands of marijuana arrests than somebody that's white, and there's no difference in it. We live in this savagely broken criminal justice system that is targeting the most vulnerable people, the people that are addicted that need health care and not prison, the people who are mentally ill who need health care, not prison. It is so savagely unfair, and I'm grateful for your family talking about it.
I think you bring up a really good point that we need to discuss as a party. And you bring up the kind of the leftist wing of the party, and then you on boots on the ground governing. And I agree with you to an extent that sometimes far, far left, it can be, they put you through the meat grinder. They put us through the meat grinder. Last Monday, we were the moderators for Kamala Harris's book tour in Los Angeles. Oh, right. And all the leftists were super mad at us. And when we first started the podcast, all of the conservative women were mad at us because we were liberal. And so I certainly understand that sometimes you feel like you can't. It's like, well, they're pissed at me. And I imagine if you're a U.S. senator, everybody's pissed at you. But I will say, now that we've been doing this for 3 years, I do think that the United States, and particularly the Democratic Party, we have to be leaders on this issue with Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu. It's something that there is a big, loud beat in the base that's permeating all across the country. When you have people in Oklahoma that have never been political before start to talk about it. And here's what I'm scared about. And I've been talking to other politicians that have come on the pod about this. You have Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is an anti-Semite. She is a real Jew hater to the core. And she is starting to message now. MAGA is not America first, where they've been Israel first. And for rural people and suburban people, when they hear that messaging, it allows a grifter and an opportunist like Marjorie Taylor Greene, for people that don't follow the 24-hour news cycle, to say, yeah, why do they have free health care and we don't? Why are we sending them all of these bombs and they're killing kids and we don't? I think in order for us to come together as a party in 2026, it's going to take leadership saying things like Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal. We have to stop funding the war. And we've evolved on the issue. And I think it's okay. I think we're all at a place right now where we can accept that we have the leaders that we have. And I agree with you that we agree on 98 out of 100 things. And if we agreed 100 out of 100, we'd be in a cult, would be MAGA. And we're not that. We're always going to disagree on things. And I genuinely hear you when you say people don't know who Chuck Schumer is. You're exactly right. So many Americans do not know who that is at all. We all do, obviously. And I think the economic messaging, but I do think that if the Democrats leave this vacuum there, it's going to get filled by the people in MAGA that are seeing a post-Trump America. And it's super easy messaging with the America First thing. It's just something I want you to think about, because I think it's a political liability for our party right now.
They're calling me for a vote. Let me just say this. So first of all, why aren't people talking about when Obama was using American jets to refuel Saudi planes that were dropping bombs on Yemenis children? Why weren't we yelling and screaming about it? I spoke out against it. But
no, it was bad, but we have to talk about current.
Please let me finish, because they're going to pull me away.
Okay.
Why? And again, I've been fighting for more funding from the Horn of Africa to the Congo to Sudan. Why can't we get people to care in this country enough, where our top podcasts are saying it's wrong that we are implicated in so many things, people dying on the continent of Africa? Why Haiti? Why can't I get top mainstream media people to give a damn about the atrocities there? The International Criminal Court singles out Israel, but not Iran, not Syria, not other folks. I don't understand. I'm with you on the ending of the nightmare and the ceasefire. I'm with you on criticizing the Netanyahu administration, which I think is worse than the Trump administration. But as a guy who is focusing so much of my effort on ending human suffering on the planet Earth, on the biggest humanitarian nightmares, I can't get people with powerful platforms to speak even once about the nightmares that are going on. It drives me nuts. And it makes me feel like I have felt when I was representing Newark, New Jersey, to get people in our country to care enough. Why do I stand out and support people that you and others criticize me for voting for? Because I will never forget when nobody cared about mass incarceration of Black and brown people, who stood up for them. Why am I get so angry sometimes about my own party, who seems to be distracted by issues that don't matter, and not to the core of people who cannot afford to pay rent and buy groceries? That's why I've chosen to live where I live. Because every day when I come home, I get snapped back to reality, to people who want me to focus on what matters to them. And so I hear you about what the causes are that are most making headlines. But my entire career, I have cared about the issues that aren't the popular issues, but are the ones that are affecting the most people, that are often forgot about or marginalized. And that's what I want to say with urgency. So you and I are going to agree on the big ticket items, but I want to come back on this show. I beg of you and I'll send them to you beforehand. 3 things that we should be talking about that we're not talking about that are affecting millions of either Americans or hundreds of millions of people or tens of millions of people on the planet Earth.
Senator, I want to thank you so much for coming on this podcast, because this is the difference between the left and the right. You come on here, we have conversations, we grow, we learn from each other, and it's not like Fox News or the right wings. We disagree and we embrace the disagreement to make a better country. And thank you so much for coming on. We respect all of the work you do, and we're here to fight this fight with you and find compromise and unity where we can.
We are unified, the three of us, and you all are voices that, again, the tradition of Black radio in America, you all know this. It was people like you all that have platforms that would entertain people, that would inform people, that would engage people, but most of all, would help to heal the hurt, to inspire people to act even when they were starting to feel despair. I believe that hope is the active conviction that despair will never have the last word. And you all are speaking up again and again and again, trying to make sure people know that as dark as things are, as challenging as things are, we still have fight, we still have strength, and we still, like my parents said when they marched, we still believe that we shall overcome.
Senator, good luck. Thank you. And please come back on.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, here's my thing.
Okay.
They just cannot criticize Israel. There's really something to that. I mean, it's kind of wild when you're in it, that the deflection, he deflected to Obama. He deflected to other places. It's interesting that he can't just stay in that. I mean, there's a little bit, but it's kind of the deflection involved in not just staying on that subject was wild to me.
Well, I mean, because he didn't say he's a war criminal. He said, I disagree with him. I think he's worse than Trump. So it's like.
Well, just when I brought it up again, he said, nobody's talking about Obama. And it's like, motherfucker hasn't been president in 10 years. And I remember people calling Obama a war criminal. I remember it. He was the drone president. He dropped drones and killed civilians. And I distinctly remember it. And he's right. There's a lot of criticism to be made and an accusation that could be made that Obama was a war criminal. It's interesting that he couldn't call Benjamin Netanyahu a war criminal. He's so good on so many subjects. Truly, like when he made the message about nobody knows who Chuck Schumer is. Brilliant. Excellent. The civil rights stuff, the healthcare issues affecting Black women so much more than it does. That's why I think with Corey, with Senator Booker, it hurts me the most because I like him. The stuff that I agree with him on, I really agree. And I think he's an effective, compassionate communicator. Yes. When it gets to, it's kind of like the whole Israel thing. It's like, once you open your eyes up to it, oh, my light just went out. Sorry, guys. Once you open up your eyes to it, it's difficult to unsee it. Yeah, it's difficult to unsee it. And we're going to have a disco, you guys. But anyway, and here's the thing. He has a good point that we have to focus on what we agree upon. But I'm trying to tell these certain politicians, you're creating a huge vacuum. The Israel thing is a huge issue right now. We have funded that country. And I want to be crystal clear that I love, support, and respect Jewish people. And I see the criticism of Israel and their leader and their government the same way that I hope that Europeans and other first world countries criticize the United States right now. If people that don't live in this country who aren't American only say, oh, that's great. It's so great that they have Trump. It's so great that they're doing away with democracy. That doesn't help me. So it's not anti-Semitic to speak out against a war criminal that is making Jews less safe worldwide.
Yeah.
Annihilating Palestinians. And I just wish that the Democrat Democratic leadership. I mean, like if Corey could just go a notch more on this, because I don't think he has any idea what a sticking point this is, how much bigger this issue has become since Kamala's election.
And I completely agree with him on everyday people, like the people we were talking about in the beginning, driving in their car. They're more worried about, why can't my child get a job? Why can't I understand that. But just on a macro level, it is so important that we have a line in the sand. Like, we will not support this, full stop. We will
And
not.
It's a layup to say Netanyahu is a war criminal. It's just, there's no question he's a war criminal. He is. Even Israeli human rights groups say it's a genocide. I mean, it's not some people in Benjamin Netanyahu's government are talking about the real estate development as yes. And not even to mention that Benjamin Netanyahu funded Hamas so that he could stay in power.
Yes. Right. It's like a Trump situation. He was going to lose his.
But here's the thing I want to say about Corey that I think is important. It's a big difference that he came on here because he knows we're critical of him, and he came on here. So the far leftist listeners, we can't just rip up the politicians that we have and discard them because we have him. He is a major senator. He's going to have more and more terms. So when he will come to places and openly communicate with us, then we have to have our disagreements. And then I will invite him back on because it's going to take a big tent to overcome this. And he answered the questions. I mean, I wish he would cut the crap and tell us, why he won't call him a war criminal, but maybe he'll get there. Right, Pumps?
Right. I just want to say that's when he said they're calling me for a vote. I wanted to say the government shut down. But you know what? I respect it because we gave him, he said, you can have this much time, and we went over. I'm all in on it. But yeah, I just thought that was funny that the government.
I know.
But
he's a very likable person, but I see what the far leftists, I see what they see now.
Sure.
That there are certain politicians who are seduced, beholden, completely, I don't know if they're propagandized themselves or being paid off or what the deal is, but there is a lack of moral clarity and a lot of deflection. The fact that he was bringing up Obama, which is a very valid thing, but we weren't talking about Obama. We're talking about currently right now, Benjamin Netanyahu bombing the shit out of everybody all the time. Like, that's who we're talking about.
And we're paying for it.
And then he said the ICC just to single him out. And I'm just like, that's kind of Israeli propaganda right there.
I will definitely have him back on to talk about the things that we're not talking about, the human rights, atrocities. I think that's important. You know what?
It is important, but his point in doing that is to not talk about deflection. Israel. Yeah.
Right.
That's the 100% point. I will have him back on, but each and every time I will continue to talk about the billions and billions and billions of dollars that hardworking Americans pay in their taxes that go to kill Palestinians. And that needs to be spoken about all of the time because there's a direct link of bipartisanship support for that.
Right.
And Israelis have free healthcare, and I'm glad they do. I'm glad they live in a country where they have free healthcare. I'm glad that they have free higher education. I don't besmirch that. But there's a problem when I drive through these rural Oklahoman towns and I see the way these people live and they have all these Trump flags and they're paying taxes and all of this stuff. And I don't think they realize what's happening. I don't think they realize how corrupt the whole Israeli government is and how corrupt our government is to continue to fund it. All right, Pumps. I think that's all we can do. I've lost my light, and
you still look gorgeous, though. You really do.
Thank you, Pumps.